heroic journey that we find our feminists, we'll say their name out loud now, the feminists trying to subvert by putting the women in the role. Well, can women go on this Christian journey?
Yes. Haven't they always done it?
Well, maybe. But this is what I mean, why do we
who was standing under the cross?
Oh, guess what? The women, right? If you're going if you're going to have Christian,
the guys bailed, by the way, for all of you young kids, you young alt-right kids that want women behind the scenes. The boys bailed.
The boys bailed. Who stood under the cross? Who was there?
Mother of our
Lord.
Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene.
A
few other Marys. There are 3 Marys under the cross there. A lot of Marys. They're all Marys. And John.
Yeah. Yeah.
And John. Who?
I shouldn't hate on the boys.
Well, John stopped. All of the others ran away. So the absolute, this is the sort of,
statistics don't lie.
all the other apostles ran away. Why did the men learn about the resurrection? I do feel like we've
that's an excellent point.
Talked about this before, but we should say it again. Why in the Gospels do the men know that the tomb is empty?
Because the apostle to the apostles, otherwise known as Mary Magdalene, decided to break curfew and run down to the tomb, disregarding the soldiers guarding the persecution with the Romans, disregarding the Pharisees. She didn't care. She ran down. She wanted to see the body of the Lord and anoint it,
along with some other women. It's not just Mary Magdalene. It's like the women go to the tomb and they're the ones who find it empty. And do you think in the Middle Ages anybody ever noticed this? Those oppressive patriarchal Middle Ages.
Didn't they have the women in scolds bridles and they didn't teach them the scriptures, so no one knew
clearly no women ever knew that it was women who were the first to find that the tomb was empty and go tell the apostles. I mean, I love this. It's like it's worth hammering home over and over and over again. The only reason that we have Christianity is because the women went to the tomb and found it empty. The men were all hiding in the upper room. They weren't going to leave.
No. And you can't accuse us for being feminists for saying this. That's the beautiful thing about it. It's got nothing to do with feminism. This is the Christian story.
Well, and delightfully enough, the origins of Christian drama are in the 3 Marys at the tomb. It was the liturgical sort of little play, or the earliest scripts that we have from medieval liturgical manuscripts displays, like is a little drama. Like now on Good Friday we read out in parts the Passion, which I've just got a book on order right now that's about the way the Gospels themselves would have been in their entirety performed as readings, which I think is quite likely. In the medieval liturgies for the Vigil on Holy Saturday, it's the 3 Marys at the tomb who then talk to the angel. So the origin of European drama is the 3 Marys going to the tomb and finding it empty.
Isn't that fantastic? So the medieval Christians beat Jeff Bezos to it by how many?
Oh, 1,000 at least. I mean, those scripts are there from around 1,000.
Isn't that interesting though? It's almost like the woke crowd really want to be Christian again.
Isn't it lovely?
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it wonderful? So this is now,
it's almost like they'd like a Pentecost situation and they'd like women to be in armor again, just like the women were in the medieval Christendom.
Well, at least Joan was, and her men followed her.
Yes.
Right. This is so. Apparently there is, however, because we don't believe that women can simply go on this hero's journey, and at least scriptwriters haven't figured this out. Dark Herald has actually found, he says, I did not make this up, this was leaked to me by a script doctor I know, that there is a description of the feminist heroine's journey that script writers are meant to follow in portraying their female leads, which the as Dark Herald is calling them, bad reboot authors for the Rings of Power, seem to be following for Galadriel. It apparently has 10 steps. I've lost track of how many there are in the hero's journey. But the first step, we have to start with: the patriarchy is real and must be treated as such. The feminist
Well, it is real.
Well,
we like it.
The feminist protagonist is oppressed by it. This is not optional. Okay, so if we're going to have the feminist story, we actually have to have the patriarchy is real. Second, she is already the key to a better world. She has all the skills she'll need inherently. She's the avatar. You just got to deal with it. Third, and Dark Herald says that this is clearly showing up in Galadriel's story. It's like early on in the portrayal, she's saying, we need to go up against whatever, and the men don't believe her. Okay, so her biggest challenge isn't defeating the antagonist, it's defeating disbelief in her. Men in particular won't believe she's amazing as she really is. Fourth, she is better than any male mentor figure. So in this sense, she can't go through the hero's journey as Campbell described it, because she can't have any advice from anybody. She's going to have to woman-splain the mentor. The guidance he gives is just another example of mansplaining and must be shot down hard by her. If there's a male mentor, then he is the first man that must be defeated. Fifth, she enters a new world that forces her to prove herself. Okay, and the 6th, 7th, 8th, she sort of does this repeat. She escapes the patriarchy. She's briefly overwhelmed and bounces back. 8th, she defeats her male oppressor. 9th, now this I find very interesting. She is now an independent woman who will never need a man, and she must continue her journey alone. Any other person in her life will hold her back. She will never love or be a wife or a mother. Those things would all hold her back. 10th, realize self-actualization. She was always a goddess and just needed to believe how awesomely amazing she always was herself.
So there's no heroism.
Well,
what you've just described to me is a heroine with absolutely no heroism. There is no sacrifice in anything that has just been described. There's no duty. She's not been responsible to anybody else except for her own ego. Her perception and the obsession over other people's perception of her overrides performance. I mean, it's just anti-masculine. Like every single point.
Wikipedia, and you'll find plenty of St. Catherine's and St. Margaret's and St. Agnes's, and all of these women have the same characteristics, weirdly enough, that are given in this feminist heroine's journey. Realized self-actualization. She was always a goddess. Well, these ladies know that they're all brides of Christ.
So what they desperately want is for women to be nuns.
Maybe. Apparently. Nuns were known as warriors as well. They sing all the same psalms that the monks do and recognize themselves as sisters in arms. There's a famous or famous within my field, right? There's a whole book by Joey McNamara, which is Sisters in Arms, right? The nuns as warriors.
Well, this is interesting. So why are all of the new call them new Catholics, but converts are not seeing this when they're reacting against feminism? They seem to be very, very angry at the agenda, but they're not seeing I mean, I haven't seen it. Many discussions amongst young Christian men about the role of women in the church like this. They're not looking at it.
Well, you're following those more closely than I am. Can you tell me more about those?
Well, I'm thinking of a few examples. So I mean, there is a push against the feminist agenda to get women to reframe their thinking from wanting to be feminists to wanting to be wives and mothers again.
Right.
Everybody wants women to give up the struggle for equality with men, and then you know, kind of return to traditional roles, return to the home, return childbearing, child rearing, etc. But there seems to be no discussion on women that are not suited to that role spiritually and who would be better placed in a monastic role.
Mm.
There seems to be no discussion amongst the Catholics that I see on the internet when they're talking to women that they may in fact be talking to somebody who was better suited to life as a nun or life as a warrior in the frame of the church.
Right.
Which I find very interesting because you know, a lot of people that have grown up in a non-Catholic environment or have grown up in the West in general, the modern West, have grown up not even knowing monasticism was a possibility for them.
Right.
So a lot of these women that have rushed into the woke agenda, rushed into wokeism, seem to be fulfilling an urge that would be better used if they had applied it by serving God in that kind of vocation. But the young Catholic men that are talking about women on the internet never seem to be having this kind of discussion. It's always, you have to become wives and mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly this is not the destiny of all Christian women.
Mel is making... Casey's saying church militant, base spiritual warrior nuns. That's good. Make habits great again. Mel saying Masonic government censorship of the religious, erasing Mary. I don't know. We'll do another episode on that. They don't use their own eyes. They believe all the evil one's lies. Return to the cell, the tension of solitude, their gravitation. This is Joycean, Mel. You need to give us full sentences. So I've never liked the Virgin Saints because I did want to be married. I did want to have a family. I mean, what's interesting about the medieval monastic tradition is, in order to recruit women to become nuns, you had to write things like Holy Maidenhead, which is a treatise basically telling about all the woes that you'll have if you have children. That it in fact took Saint Jerome, who I don't think was a very nice person, sorry, a fair degree of effort to convince the matrons of Rome that they don't want to have children, and that it is talking women out of wanting families in the longer tradition had actually been the harder call. So that we end up now with a claim that you're supposed to, as a woman, want to be this powerful, independent character. But as we've seen, most women end up kind of miserable if they don't have those relationships that you're apparently not supposed to want. I'm not even... I can't figure out who actually wants any of this stuff. It's like, why? I mean, if Amazon may, lose out because, in fact, what women, want to watch is a happy
Twilight.
ending. Yes. Want the romance and the marriage.
Yep.
Who, in fact, has been trying to tell us that we didn't?
The church fathers.
Oh, wait. No, wait. Now I'm confused.
Well, it wasn't appropriate in pagan society to reject marriage because it was statecraft. It was marriage as statecraft, correct?
Well, by the time Jerome's doing it, they're mainly Christian in Rome. It's the upper class thing. Although he's taking it too far and talking women out of marriage in a context in which the Roman family still wanted to have children. It's complicated in the 4th century. But in the 14th century, even treatises trying to convince women that they want to be nuns and stay virginal have to, pull out all the stops and talking about how awful it is to have all these babies.
Well, this is interesting. So it's the complete opposite of the meme then, of the no eggs.
Yes.
That everyone's screaming at women on the internet saying, no eggs, no eggs. But this was kind of St. Jerome's ideal state.
Yep.
There's all these women who have, hit their expiry and can just focus on the things of the next life.
Yep.
Instead of on motherhood and children.
Yep.
That's fascinating.
Well, I mean, this is the irony of Christianity. If it actually lived out perfectly, there wouldn't be any. Everybody would be virginal and have no sex and have no families, because we're all focusing on the heavenly.
So this maybe is the issue then. I mean, at least for me with the female characters, is that they're not being women, that is, are not being shown that this instinct to remain unattached to men can be redirected to a holy vocation, and instead they're being abused by Christians who should know about the tradition of the church that encouraged this at a particular time and gave them a purpose in that rejection of the feminine role behind the sink.
Yes, well, the irony of it is that the pounding on saying you should have this domestic role is Protestant.
Aha.
And so there was a very interesting, I feel like we've said this before, now I'll just repeat it, but there's a very interesting scene in Black Widow where the character, the father figure returned is saying, is it the time of the month for you, something? And Scarlett Johansson character, or no, maybe her sister character, says, no, I can't. They gave me a hysterectomy. I mean, and not so in certain terms, like they ripped it out, yank, 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 snip, 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 no eggs, so that she could be the assassin that she is. And it's like which has some reality in the way the Soviets treated their female athletes, for example, like giving them hormones, making them masculine. The sort of inversions and flipping and flopping and everything that's going on between what we've already talked about with the gender slipperiness of the soul in relation to God, and the masculinization of women so that they could be nuns. It's so interesting that the edginess, it's like the edginess of the woke is rediscovering the powers of the celibate accidentally.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the zipper tits, the girls that are trying to sorry, not clean speech, but it's a hilarious term. But they're they're doing the same thing.
Yes.
It's a kind of public profession of
renouncing their femininity.
Yeah, renouncing their femininity, and it's probably the surgical equivalent to donning a habit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're dealing with a religious war. We're not dealing with a political war.
Right. Yes.
So this is where the freak out over the alt-right appropriation of Tolkien is quite hilarious, because actually it's got nothing to do with right or left. It's got nothing to do with politics whatsoever. It's completely a religious war.
Yes.
Between Catholics and the whatever version of religion we're dealing with right now, which is called wokeism.
Well, appropriately enough, and I'm wondering how far they're going to go with this in the Rings of Power. What Sauron convinces the Númenóreans to do is practice human sacrifice
Yes.
in order to achieve what they hope is going to be immortality.
Mm.
So the interesting thing is the evil continues. It's still in the same monomyth, still in the same story. I think Campbell was actually quite limited in his hero's journey understanding,
Mm.
and it's as much as I enjoy every so often reading some Campbell, um he was less skilled than Joyce or Tolkien at trying to rewrite the myths into
Mm.
a sort of compelling story form. And so ironically, I think one of the unfortunate things that's happened in the script writing stuff is they all took whatever that hero's journey was as their template, their story template, without understanding, as Tolkien and Joyce clearly did, the deep roots underneath it in Christ's story. Which
Mm.
maybe, I mean, maybe this is the simplest version of what's going on is insofar as they're writing without true biblical knowledge, without true, not just doctrinal, but practical knowledge of what it's like to try to live within this liturgical and moral tradition. They're just making, as
Mm.
like I said, I've already said it, they make the stories boring because they don't give you the actual deep tests that
Mm.
God actually gives us.
So it's the lack of trial that makes it useless.
Yes. Well, I mean, they're clear giving Galadriel like over the top trials that are too easy to accomplish.
Mm.
But
Well, but the definition of a trial is the test to uh, see if something's good or bad or not, or something's weak or strong or not, you know? So maybe this is the problem, is that they're not real trials because there's no potential for failure.
well, and then we find out the necessity of free will in order for God to give us a proper a
Our
proper who knows
Calvinist friend
what.
is not going to be happy.
Oh my no, well my Calvin, well I mean I'm a Calvin, me deep Calvinist. I mean Tolkien was as well, because the thing that I dislike most in Jackson's scripts is the way in which he misunderstands the issue of free will and choice and the decisions that the characters are actually making. And I'm guessing from the reviews that I'm reading of the Rings of Power that Galadriel doesn't seem to be having to make any decisions. She's just sort of having to rouse people by being upset. Darkhold keeps calling her the Karen. She knows the right decision, and people just don't believe her, and so she has to berate them for not behaving the way she wants, which just turns her into a nasty teacher trying to run a classroom rather than someone facing her own true challenges.
So that's the difference then. It's the decision. So they're writing. This is hilarious. They're writing feminist heroines that actually don't have agency.
I
That's hilarious.
think that's
Wow.
what we were there. Yes, they have no agency.
What a waste of money.
They have no true agency.
We've got no agency.
I'm and it only took us nearly 2 hours to get to that point. That's what's irritating about her.
Yep. Yep. There's no choice. There's no red pill, blue pill. There's no what if she doesn't make this correct decision, or what happens if she makes the wrong decision? That's why they're irritating.
They're irritating because they have no true agency.
And that's why women irritate me when they go along with these particular characters, because women are not willing to admit that in order to be truly heroic, you need to have agency, or at least you need to, acknowledge that that's a part of being a hero. There's choice. Men choose to be heroes or not. Galadriel in armor doesn't. She just is.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with this realization, and recognizing that is in fact the thing that bothered me, and particularly in Jackson's portrayal of Aragorn, that Aragorn, in order to become king, has to choose in situations where he doesn't know what the right choice is. He can't even be sure himself that he's choosing, and particularly when they're trying to figure out whether to go with Sam and Frodo or with go after Merry and Pippin. Because they don't know whether Merry and Pippin are still alive, but they're supposed to be with Sam and Frodo in the sense of helping them get the ring to Mordor. And he has to choose, and he's not sure whether he's made the right choice. And that is completely lost in the scene in the movies, because he just says, oh, they have their way to go and we have ours. And that is the real difficulty. The real problem is the lack of that crisis of choosing.
Well, isn't that interesting that all the women now want my body, my choice?
And no choice, in fact.
Yep. They don't want to make the choice. They want to make an anti-choice. Fuck.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I think this is good. And of course, we said that Mary chose. This is the entire mystery of the incarnation, as medieval Christians understood it, is that God sends the angel to Mary to say, you found favor with God, and Mary has to give her consent. That's the 12th century meditation Bernard of Clairvaux makes famous, but is there in the meditations on what Mary suffers under the cross. She said yes. And when she said yes, she knew that was coming too. That she's given understanding, and Simeon points out to her when she presents Christ in the temple to be circumcised, that a sword will pierce through your own heart as well. That through that, and it's like, out of many hearts will be revealed. I should know that phrase perfectly, but I'm forgetting it because I'm so stunned at this. This is the realization that choice. And the problem with the feminist heroine journey, as the script doctor is saying, is that there's literally no choices, which is, of course, what the romance is always about, as Jane Austen understood, that the women have to know which one to say, to choose, which man to, in fact, accept or reject.
Yeah, you go for Wiggum. He ruins your life.
Yep.
You go for Darcy. You argue a lot. It's like, but that's what it is.
But there's a real choice. Yeah,
there is a choice.
Well, I think that's a good place to have gotten to. A very good place to have gotten to. Let's see if the ladies have any more comments.
Yep.
Casey says, anti-choice is a good word. They seek to reverse creation. Yes. Mel says, patriarchy means there is a matriarchy. Well, that too as well. Well, I think this is a very good place to have gotten to.
Mel.
Yes. Yes.